Yo, what up, friends? Sir, please, with all due respect, serve out your last term. You're going to be 82 damn years old. You're going to be the age Joe Biden was. Your faculties are not going to be there. All right? I mean, yes, you're a little better off than Biden was at this point. But if we really expect anyone, really after 80, to be in the position to be able to be the president of the United States, we are all tripping and we need to check ourselves. No one over 70, I've said this, should even be a politician. No senators. No, I don't want Mitch McConnell's and Chuck Schumer's. No. Why do we have people that are at such an age that they lived in a world that was before what the United States is now? They were born in a whole different world. They were born before civil rights. They were born when it was. Oh, by the way, y'all, if you ever go to Memphis, I know I keep going back to Memphis. I went to the Civil Rights Museum when I was in Memphis. And boy, oh boy, I cannot tell you how surreal and how humbling it was. You got to see a facsimile of the bus that Rosa Parks sat on. You got to see a facsimile of the bus that the Freedom Riders got burned in. You got to see the Selma riots. You got to see John Lewis and the beatings he took walking across the bridge. You see all of these things and you're just like, I can't believe at one point in time in this great nation of ours now, obviously not at that time, it wasn't, that there was a time where people were treated as subhuman. And it's not like I didn't know all of this. I obviously know very much about it. Majority of my friends are black. But to actually go into the actual Lorraine Motel where Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and see the room he was shot in, to know that all of these things, to see the demonstration of the Nashville Sit-In, which, by the way, shout out and salute to one of my best friends in the world. I'm gonna put her government out here. I'm not gonna give you her last name, but Katie, I love you very much, darling. She set up a sit-in for us after the George Floyd protest for us to go protest a restaurant that was for refusing or treating Black and brown people bad after that incident happened and had bad things to say in the press. This amazing woman who is a teacher of our youth, and I am so proud of her, scheduled for us to do a sit-in a la the Nashville sit-ins from 1953, something like that. Anyways, and that as well was a surreal moment that really brought into perspective how there's still not equality in this country. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you think. It's not true. There is not equality in this country at this point in time. There's not. Are we getting better? Yes. Are we progressing to a more, I don't even want to use the word inclusive. I might get canceled by Donald Trump for saying inclusive because he thinks I'm talking DEI. I'm not. I'm just talking about people being treated as human beings and not being treated as less than, not being treated as 2/3 of a human. I saw the replica of the slave ships that came across with the people having to hover 3 feet like this. I'm so glad that we are progressing. I'm so glad that we're getting better from that part of our horrid history and time. But that doesn't mean we have equality in this country. Y'all, whether you're black, white, brown, blue, yellow, orange, purple, green, otherwise, you have to understand the disparities that still exist in this country. And whether you actually want to say it out loud and admit that it's true, there's still an imbalance of equality, an imbalance of justice, an imbalance of power. If I, as a person, as a man with the name Omar Fonseca, Omar, a Middle Eastern name, a very brown name. People call me a terrorist. And yes, it happens all the time still. My last name, Fonseca, of some sorts. Where is he from? If I was to apply for a job today with my name, with my with my name. I always would apply to a job with my name. But you also had John Johnson or John Doe. There is a very more likely high percentage that John Johnson, is going to get an interview over me. Now, we may still both get the interview, but then there will also be a likely higher percentage that he would be hired than me. Because believe it or not, y'all, inherent biases exist in this society. You may not be a racist. You may not even be a stereotypist. But we all have biases. We all stereotype from time to time. Even I am not above that. But when you do it to the extent where you become racist or where you become disparaging or enact a discrepancy against a different race or religion because you think you're superior, that's what causes these imbalances. That's what causes this injustice and inequalities that happen, not just in hiring. Y'all, we can go back to redlining back in the 19-teens and the 1920s. Why do you think, and I'm about to learn y'all and hit y'all with some real shit if you didn't know this already, why do y'all think that cities, inner cities, and outer suburbs are divided by highways? Anybody got an answer for me? I feel like I'm back at Vanderbilt teaching class again. I feel like I'm teaching my Vanderbilt digital marketing class. Shout out to all my students out there if you're watching. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Do y'all know what that... Do you understand that? Do you understand that when you, even in schooling, even in hiring, even in all of these things, even in the places we live, y'all, if you didn't know, redlining is the process of redistricting and separating the affluent, hint, hint, Caucasian mostly, versus non-affluent, poor, aka mostly black and brown people. There was a reason that highways cut through the city and separate it. They needed a barrier to keep the poor people from the richer areas. We gotta think, y'all. Critical thinking, do research, go back and read history. And so what do you think that does? What do you think are the waterfall effects of something like that? That's where systematic oppression comes into play. First, it starts with redlining, highways separating inner city from outer suburbs, black and brown from white. Then, what about gerrymandering? Politicians separating countries between their constituents, between conservatives and liberals, aka again, mostly Caucasian or mostly brown and black, right? If you're looking at the composition of parties. So when you look at these things, y'all, you might not believe it, especially if you live in the outer suburbs or if you're a rich person. And if you are listening to me right now, I really appreciate you taking the time to learn. I really do. I love people that want to learn. I don't think you're a bad person because you don't know this. I think you're a good person for wanting to know this. But there's a reason that highways separate the inner city and the outer city. There's a reason why clusters of people are usually Caucasian clustered, brown clustered, black clustered, Asian clustered, right? It's because, not only because people definitely want to stick together with their kind, sure, but also because the kinds create it to be that way. And the people in power created it to be that way. And the people that were in power for that whole time, because before civil rights, no one else really had any freedom or power. It was all Caucasian people. So when you have the Caucasian side of the population deciding things for 50 to 100 years and separating themselves from the rest of the population in order to keep what some people call white nationalism, what some people still call white segregation. I won't call it that, but I will call it keeping to yourself. I will call it wanting to be with your kind. But the problem was, at the time, the only people who could make those decisions were the white people. So it just looks like the white people didn't want to be around any black, brown, or otherwise. It is. It couldn't be anything else. There's no other logical reason. Because if you don't have enough money, you can't move into those neighborhoods. If you're lucky enough as a black and brown person, you may be able to own a home in that neighborhood. And then you'll possibly still be disparaged on. People will still look at you as, oh, where's this person come from? The only black or brown person in the neighborhood. Maybe they're going to rob our stuff. It happens, y'all. There are inherent biases and stereotypes. I'm not saying it's you. But if you feel some type of way about what I'm saying right now, you better go check yourself in the mirror. Check yourself before you'll wreck yourself, as the great Wu-Tang Clan once said. So redlining, gerrymandering, all of these things lead to systematic oppression and then the discrepancies because, yeah, for that long period of time, Caucasian people were paid more, did get better education. When I was in the Civil Rights Museum, oh, that's what I should have done. I'm going to do this next week. I'm going to put a picture up. But I took a picture in the Civil Rights Museum that had the discrepancies before segregation was taken out. That had the differences between white schools and minority schools and how much teachers were paid and books. And it was all basically double and above that white schools were getting over the minority schools. All these things make a difference. When you have really nice books versus really shitty books, it makes it a lot easier to learn. And you don't get as depressed and not want to learn because you're in a classroom with no heating and no air conditioning and horrible books and no lunch, and no one wants to give you free lunch because you're in the hood and they think that you're trying to eat off society, even though most of the people that are on food stamps, by the way, are Caucasian and live in Republican areas. And again, I do not like either party, so don't think if you're just showing up. I see some people coming in, you might think I'm either. I do not like Democrat or Republican. We're keeping this neutral on this program. What I am saying, though, is that when you look at these sort of things, that's what comes out of this, a discrepancy. And minorities, black and brown people, are still trying to catch up from those discrepancies. So again, I don't need you to necessarily tell me you're not a racist. I believe you're not a racist. I have biases. I have stereotypes. I just want you to be kind to your fellow man and understand that there is still a discrepancy. There is still an imbalance between the Caucasian and any other minority in this country. It just is what it is. It is completely right there. In any normal person, you could be a monkey, you could be a child, and understand that. I hope I learned you some things there. I'm gonna have to clip that because that was cooking. So I hope y'all learned some things there. But yeah, man, we just gotta look deeper into these things. These things cause issues. Remember, everything has a ripple effect, a butterfly effect. Anything you do is either that shit's gonna roll downhill or uphill. For the United States being the world power, shit rolls uphill. For the poor person in the hood or the homeless person that no one cares about, shit rolls downhill.
Subscribe on YouTube at Ball and Buds for sports and entertainment live streams and videos.